Hey y'all, it's Lexi. I hope everyone's enjoying their quarantine and making the most out of this situation we're in. I want to start today off by looking at this picture of a field with these yellow flowers. It's really pretty, nice colors. So what would you say if I told you that those actually weren't flowers at all, but they were weeds? I know, it's kind of weird to think that weeds can be as pretty as these flowers look. But now, what would you say if I told you this is actually a field on my family's farm where we planted ryegrass late last year, but we failed to spray weed killer. So we went through all the trouble to prepare the ground and plant the seeds, only to let it get overgrown by all of these beautiful weeds. It doesn't do us a lot of good that way. We can't really bale the weeds for the cows to eat because that's not nutritious. So a lot of times we do the same thing in our spiritual life. God prepares our hearts, the seeds are planted, but we don't remove the weeds from our lives. We don't remove those sins that we're so fond of. Instead, we hold on to them because they don't look like sins to us at all. They're actually pretty appealing. We get distracted by all the beautiful sins of the world, and before we know it, we're surrounded by things that are just slowly choking our spiritual life out. In the Gospels, Jesus shares the parable of the soils. In Matthew 13:5-8 says, "Some fell on stony places where they did not have much earth, and they immediately sprang up because they have no depth of earth. But when the sun came, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away." And that's kind of similar to when you're on that church camp high that a lot of people talk about, where you're at church camp and you're on top of the mountain and you're so on fire for God, and then 2 weeks you get back and real life starts to settle back in, and suddenly that fire for God's not so hot anymore. Next, he talks about some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprang up and choked them. And that's a lot like these weeds in this picture. A lot of times that can happen when you fall in with the wrong crowd, or you start hanging around some people and they're wanting to do things that aren't necessarily honoring to God, and slowly they pull you in with them, and that's what's going to choke out your spiritual life. And then finally he says, "But others fell on good ground and yielded crop," which is ideally what you want to happen. Though the quality of the soil is important for the nourishment of the seeds, that same good quality soil enables weeds to flourish as well. So without taking precautions to protect the seeds from the weeds, they will inevitably take over. It works the same in our spiritual life. The seeds are planted in a willing heart, and we don't take any of the precautions to protect our spiritual life from the weeds of the world. We don't utilize any of the tools we're given to strengthen our spiritual life, and therefore we are unable to protect our hearts from the attacks of the enemy. That's why it's so important for us to not only be a willing vessel, but also a good steward of the resources we're given. It's really important to remember that, yes, you have that word of the Lord in your heart, but you have to hide that in your heart. You have to protect your heart and guard your heart from the things of this world, because the enemy is going to try so hard to take that away from you and to damage that for you and hurt you in that way. So you're going to try and turn against God. And so I want to close out today by reading Colossians 1:9-11. "For this reason we also, since the day we heard it, do not cease to pray for you, knowledge of his will in all wisdom and spiritual understanding, that you may walk worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing him, being fruitful in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God, strengthened with all might according to his glorious power for all patience and long-suffering with joy." And so I know it was really short today. I know I kind of crammed a lot in there, but I'm hoping that in your small groups, y'all can really dive into the questions and y'all can really kind of sort that out for yourself and think about like the different kind of soils that you've experienced in your life. Have you always been great soil for the Lord's seed, or have you sometimes been rocky or choked out by thorns? And so I want y'all to take this time to really reflect on that, think to yourselves, talk to God, ask Him to reveal that to you and help you to see how you can improve in that way, and ask Him to help you learn to better protect your heart from the enemy and help you be a light to others. So I'm really excited to see y'all all again next week, and I hope y'all stay safe during quarantine. Bye, guys.